Dubey sir, now you can start.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Uh, we are going to talk a little bit about meditation once again, as we had a long discourse on last Sunday on meditation. And I'm going to read out the last chapter of the book, The Word Within, which is on right meditation. And I don't need to introduce the book, as you all know. Uh, this is a compilation of the interviews Krishnaji had with people who used to come to him from 1939 to 1945. So there are 90 conversations. I'm going to read the last one. It's a little longer, so please bear with me. Right meditation. M came from some distance to explain and to ask about his dreams and meditation. He said he had attended some of the talks and had listened attentively to what was said about meditation. He had practiced one or two systems, fixing his mind on an object, developing certain qualities, praying, forcing his mind to be still, and so on. That all entailed tremendous struggle and strain. Occasionally, it had brought peace, but even that was hazardous. While he was practicing the different systems of meditation, he had found that he had violent and disturbing dreams. Why was that? Lately, he had tried, as was suggested, to follow out, feel out each thought and feeling. His dreams had been different, and could we talk it over? He was a school teacher, and he liked fairly well his job. He had purposely abstained from too many activities and had given a great deal of time to religious thought. The right kind of meditation will solve many of our difficulties. In it is the key to most of our problems. Right meditation is for thought to free itself from all compulsion, from coercion, from wrong effort. We must understand the motive, the compulsion that lies behind the becoming, the desire to reach out, to attain. Without fundamentally understanding this urge, right meditation is not possible. The desire to fit into pattern, however noble and idealistic, is not right meditation. I think I'm beginning to understand, he replied. Why you lay stress on this point? It is difficult, but it is not an end process rather than what one should begin with. Why indulge in drunkenness to discover sobriety? Why go south when you have to go north? It is difficult, but it is not more complex and difficult to cultivate wrong views and practices and then to break them down. Is it not a waste of effort? So, right meditation is to be discovered from the very beginning. The maker of effort must understand himself. He must become aware first. He must then be aware of cause and effect and of the dual process of thought feeling. Then the thinker and his thought must be experienced as one. In all this, there may not be any compulsion. Compulsion, wrong effort, does not bring understanding. And if I may point out, because you have been forcing your thought feeling to fit into a form, into a preconceived formula, you have had violent and disturbing dreams. Wrong effort produces wrong results. To understand profoundly and widely, there must be the cessation of all effort, which is difficult art. Your dreams are the continuation of your conscious determination to gain an end, to achieve. Such resolutions are not right meditation. Dreams are indications whose interpretations depend on the dreamer. And if the dreamer is concerned with patterns, formulas, and compulsions and not understanding, then his dreams will be disturbing and confusing. But if the dreamer, the thinker, begins to be aware of his thought feelings and so thinks them out, feels them out as expansively and deeply as possible, which is the beginning of right meditation, through self-knowledge and right thinking. Then the freedom of reality and understanding come into being. Force or compulsion of any kind prevents the open vulnerability to reality. The more you are aware of your thoughts, feelings, aware of the many layers of your educated consciousness, and the greater the intensity of awareness, the less the dreamer dreams. Then sleep as meditation brings an awareness of that which is beyond the educated, conditioned consciousness. This again is extremely arduous. Thought as memory carries over from day to day incidents, experiences, and intentions which give continuity to the educated consciousness. Is centering it widely or narrowly. If each day we know death, if each day we complete our thought feelings and carry them over to the next, unburdening the mind and the heart every minute of the day and not allowing any residue or scars to form, then there will be deathless ecstasy. So this is what Kay talks about, right meditation. Now all of us are free to make comments or views or understanding as we feel fit.
Sir,
Yes, Mr. Ramarao, please.
yeah, yes, sir. Things are very simple and clear what you read it. But in day-to-day life, always we use thought, and that the thought always to fit in the specific format of day-to-day works. This is my life. So in this question, how uh, meditation, the word there it occurs, how it, this is question.
I'll quote something which Krishnaji said once in Rajghat, and perhaps we can explore that and it may intellectually give an answer to what Mr. Ramarao has mentioned. He said that, if you plant a seed, you can provide good soil, fertilizer, water, see that it gets good sunlight. But the seed needs the darkness of the soil in order to become a plant. So it will germinate only when it gets that darkness. And that we can't provide. It has to come from within. So you may prepare yourself for whatever you want to do, but I think the mind has to become quiet. The thought has to be in abeyance, or it has to completely be quiet, then only what we call meditation can take place. This is the way I look at it, sir. Maybe Harshji can throw some more light on it. Unmute, sir, unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I think the first important thing Krishnaji is saying is that any systems of meditation and any kind of practice of meditation that isn't really meditation, or it's not right meditation. And that whatever we do, so, and he also says that it's very difficult to not have that desire or urge within oneself. I'll sit quietly, or whatever I do, that somehow I'll do something that is meditation, that will lead to meditation, or that will somehow provide the soil. Or so I think even if we have this sense that Krishnaji is talking about, that practice doesn't work, there still remains within us a kind of urge that is saying, okay, let me do something that will bring about or help me to come to this thing that he's talking about. So it requires tremendous attention to what is actually going on, how we are actually thinking. What is our thinking producing the desire for meditation? So that is I think that's the key part of what he's saying. The negative action, not doing anything about meditation. It's almost impossible, at least, if one tries it. But at the same time, I think, I don't know about everybody else, but in the past, when I was a lot younger, I did try all kinds of meditation. And you do get some kind of temporary quiet of the mind if you just sit and observe your thoughts. And I'd also like to say that in the schools, in Rishi Valley, it's Astachal. In Brockwood, it's morning meeting. We start the day by everybody sitting quietly for 10 or 15 minutes. So there is something to it. And Krishna Ji certainly wanted that. He suggested that should happen, to gather our thoughts for the coming day, to let all our wayward thinking settle down. So there is something even to sitting quietly and watching one's thought. And that is, but to call that meditation, I don't know, it might, but I think we shouldn't discard things like that completely. They have some value in, I don't know, stilling the mind or reining in all, because the mind tends to shoot off in all kinds of directions, think all kinds of things and move from one thing to the other. It's, and the awareness of that action definitely brings about. I'm sure everybody has done this. Not necessarily a practice of meditation, but just sitting quietly and observing thought. So I think part of what he's suggesting is that we just need to look more deeply into this question of the kind of non-action that eventually comes to meditation. I don't know if this is my observation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Harish ji, Ramesh, Shakti ji, you want to say something?
Perhaps Harish ji can say something, and then because I am still listening, and then some response comes, I will talk about. Thank you.
Okay. After Harish ji, I think Arun Partho wants to say something. So Harish ji first and then Arun. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. First of all, extremely sorry for being late, but I pick up the cue, if I can use the word, or pick up the thread from what Harshji said. He said, I don't know if we can call that meditation. At the basic level, we should be clear about a couple of things. Certainly, Harshji was not exactly talking about meditation that happens on its own accord, uninvited, so to say, but some sort of, either call it practice or some sort of segregating time, a slot of time from our busy or not busy schedule. So one thing is sure, body and then mind. Like, I cannot be jogging, having my morning jogging and meditate also. Somebody may say, well, while jogging, I can watch the flowers. Sure, we can. And we must. Not that we should, but for that matter, we should not jog and daydream also. When we like to indulge in daydreaming, then it is better that we sit back and close our eyes and then daydream, being aware that, yes, I am daydreaming, whatever it is. I'm indulging in my wish fulfillment or whatever it is. So segregating a time when the body can assume a posture, whether on the floor or in a chair or whatever it is. Once the body has settled down in a sitting posture, most convenient to us, depending upon whether we have pain somewhere, sciatica, rheumatic pain, or whatever it is. Then the mind, then the brain, like, I cannot take a posture, sit in a posture and think about which will be the best train for me to travel from Pune to Patna. No. First, I should find out the train, book my ticket, and then probably settle down for meditation, so to say. So allow the mind to be unoccupied with something consciously. I am using the word consciously. I can settle down in a very comfortable posture, and my mind may still be occupied with the nagging thought, should I have flown? There was only the difference of 2,000 or 1,000 in the flight from Pune to Patna. Should I have, but I have not settled down or sat down to compare. I can't help the thought. I can only watch the thought. So what I mean is allowing the mind to remain unoccupied consciously. That means certainly not sit for meditation or lie down for meditation when there is a stimulus, there is a challenge, there is an issue to resolve. Having done that, then the rest is a matter of details, and it may agree, disagree. But I must say, I must be allowed to say a couple of things. Sunday we had a talk by Rodriguez, and I must say that it was, I don't know, it was very rewarding or very fulfilling. He did not say a thing new, nothing new, but it was really very comprehensive. And there was a disagreement between him and Dr. Parekh, Harshad Parekh, when he said that I don't think we should be bothered about whether the eyeballs should move or not. And I wanted to say something, but somehow I was not probably in the right frame of mind. You see, it is not that we should ensure that the eyeball should not move. Let me put it the other way. When Krishnaji said it, Krishnaji gave the indication that when the mind is occupied with any problem, no matter how serious or trivial, the eyeballs cannot be unmoving. The eyeballs will be moving. So there is no question of forcing the eyeballs not to move, but be aware that yes, my eyeballs are sort of, blinking even with my closed eyelids. It is moving. And as Krishnaji has often said, being aware of my inattention is attention. So being aware of eyeballs moving, and I don't know, I'm sure probably most of us have felt one thing. The moment we become aware, if we can, of our eyeballs moving, immediately we realize one thing, that our attention is focused on what Hindus call Agya Chakra. Without our wanting to focus, I have heard in the Gita, Krishna says, Arjuna, concentrate on, and he uses the word, Sanskrit word, Bhru Madhya. That means the point between two eyebrows. Automatically it happens. So whether, and why I'm mentioning it, because if we take our attention to the point between two eyebrows, we will suddenly realize that eyeballs have stopped moving. So which way it works doesn't matter. But there are certain facts about the practice of meditation, if I can use the phrase practice of meditation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harishji. Thank you. Mr. Arun Partho, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, sir.
Yeah.
So actually, this topic is very interesting and very, vast. I mean, because I don't know much about it, but I can just talk about few of the things which Krishna ji has mentioned, which really caught my attention related to meditation. Meditation, basically, he says it begins with self-knowledge. So, and he keeps constantly mentioning the fact that you have to understand yourself thoroughly. That is like your jealousy, anger, and whatever feelings arise. So basically, do we really stay with it completely? Because he always keeps saying that stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. But generally, we have a way of escapes. We just try to escape. So I think first thing is meditation begins with self-knowledge. And the second point, what Krishna ji always mentioned, is that is constantly meditation is actually the emptying of the mind. So basically, I think whatever the factors which are the which makes ourself, that is your jealousy, anger, and all, I think there is a possibility where you can empty it as it keeps coming up, because he keeps saying that if you stay with it, it flowers and withers away. That point really catches my attention, because I feel there is a point where any kind of feeling like anger, jealousy, or if you're really present to that, there is a possibility that it just flowers and withers away. In that way, you are able to empty your mind itself. And I think to understand what Krishna ji is saying itself, like we have to be extremely attentive in the present moment, and you should be fully present, and then see really what happens. Because what Krishna ji has mentioned, otherwise will become just very theoretical. So basically, Krishna ji has given us is not shown us a method, but he has mentioned some things probably which if we incorporate, then we would be really able to understand meditation and not make it as a formula, but probably some key points which he has mentioned too, which if you look at it in a little more deeper way, we would probably understand meditation. And if you also see that there is always a possibility to be with it, to do meditation in any place, like, it doesn't require a time or you think, because it is all the actions of the self which you are, but only thing is, are we really interested? And are we, committed to be in that present? That's what makes the difference. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Arunji. Thank you. Thank you. Clemis and then Shaktiji. Clemis, please go ahead.
Yeah. See, Krishnamurti says that meditation cannot be invited, that pre-meditation is no meditation at all. That it means to sit and say, I'm going to meditate. That is no meditation, according to what Krishnamurti says. And I think it was today or it was yesterday, I came across a text where Krishnamurti is also saying that for meditation, you need attention. And there can be attention only if there is care and if there is deep interest in the subject that to understand. So I feel that meditation that Krishnamurti is talking about, and according to him, that is real meditation, is something that comes like maybe like insight, like he also talks about insight. That I forgot his name now, but there is this famous person who discovered gravity when the apple fell from the tree.
Newton.
Yeah. So he was really deeply interested in how things work and what happens, and his mind was constantly in that state of trying to understand things. And then suddenly that apple fell on his head. How many people apples have fell on their head and they discovered nothing? So it happened to him because he was really deeply interested in that and in discovering how things work. And he had that care, that kind of passion that most of the time we lack, because we want easy ways to do things. We want easy ways to solve our problems. But according to Krishnamurti, there is no such thing as an easy way. We really have to understand things in order to get things in a different way. So, and then self-knowledge that he mentioned this time in this text that Mr. Dubeji just read. Self-knowledge seems to be the key for everything. So without self-knowledge, which means without understanding how my mind works, to sit and say, I'm going to meditate. I don't know, many people do that, and I don't think there is no value at all in it. Maybe there is some value as people become, if they want to, if that is important to become calm and all those things, that may work for them. But to call that meditation in the sense that Krishnamurti is talking about, I think that's not it. And there is no harm in sitting quiet, but there is a problem if you start doing it every day at the same time as a routine and hoping to get something from it. Then there is a problem. And I think that was what Krishnamurti was calling attention, that we should avoid and that we should not go down that road, to expect something when we sit every day at the same time quietly for such a long time or not. So, but I don't think there is any harm on sitting quiet. That helps, I think. And even, I remember my father, he used to sit quiet at the end of the day. He knew nothing about meditation or any such thing. But there was this need to just sit apart from everybody, quiet. And maybe he was, I don't know what he was thinking, but I used to see him a lot. So people in the ancient times, they had more time because they were not rushing about all the time. And we had this quality of sitting for some time and being just quiet. I think that is important, but not expect anything from that quiet.
Thank you, Clemis. Thank you. Anandji, please go ahead, and then Dinesh Bagmari. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, what I see is most of us, keep, I mean, quoting from Vedas or Upanishads or, Krishna and things like that, even K for that matter, See, for 5,000 years, I mean, we have had the so-called, Hinduism or whatever you call, it has not solved the problems. And now the moment I quote them, I make them an authority. Can I observe that is the question, sir? No, coming to even when I say what K says, I make him an authority. Can I observe that is a question? K mentioned that he acts as a mirror. How many of us do we really understand what it means, sir? Can I see? He says that when he says acting like a mirror, it is not he is talking. I am looking myself into it. It is me. Can I observe that is a question? And the moment when we talk about meditation, whatever we call it, I mean, I don't seem to understand fundamentally, we talk about self-knowledge, but do I understand that meditation is a destruction of habit? We are nothing, we are creatures of habits. Anything, whether in relationship, whether with people, whether husband and wife, with father and child, I mean, it's just become a habit. We continue to do the same thing repeatedly. So can I see how we form habits, how we fall into a pattern, and which is the cause for, all the problems which you are having? So can I observe that? Can I look into the habits? What are habits? I would include my eating habits too. It's so difficult to change. Can I look into that is a question, sir. Over.
Thank you, Anandji. Shakti ji, you want to say something? Then we go to Dinesh. Shakti ji,
Yes,
please.
sir. Yes, sir. You see this question of, because here Krishnamurti talks about motive in the beginning, and he says we must understand the motive, the compulsion that lies behind the becoming. And whether we call it meditation or whether we call it self-knowledge, if it is not, if the experimentation is not to attain something or to advocate what Krishnamurti is saying or to oppose it, then it is for testing out that whether this statement is possible or not possible. So in that way, what I find here, which has been difficult for me, is to see that the person who is watching is not different from the thing which is being watched. And at the logical plane, it is very clear that how the observer in me can be different from whatever disturbance I am having or whatever good feelings I am having. Logically, that is very clear. But what happens is that it's like a flash that you suddenly realize that, yes, when one is watching one's inner world, there is no separation in watcher and the watched. But it's like a flash. Otherwise, it seems like some sort of a very default mechanism of separation. This I have encountered again and again. And just this I wanted to add in this after I have read this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shakti ji. Mr. Dinesh Wagmare. Dinesh ji, please go ahead.
Sir, I want to ask very simple question. Basically, what is meditation? Why do I need meditation? And what Krishnamurti is trying to relate it, how it is going to, how he is relating it with the dreams? That is my question. Then the question of right meditation starts. First question is, what is meditation? Why do I require meditation? And how Krishnamurti is relating it with the dreams? Probably Mr. Harsh Tanka, I think Harsh Tanka sir should be in a position to say
I think
something.
Harshji will certainly answer,
I
but
don't know why,
I
don't know why you turned to me for this.
but I would request Dineshji to answer your questions yourself first. What do you think meditation is?
I was going
And
to
why
ask
do
him
you
that.
need it? Yeah,
Yes.
you can answer that yourself. We have talked about
See,
meditation for a long time.
my views on this, are very different. Basically, when I observe myself, I see that I am having a process, or my system is having a process which may be called as thought. Now, there are two things. One is my memory is full of my past, whatever I thought. That memory is containing all the past thoughts. And number two, with that reference, my conscious mind can think or think about something. But there is I find in myself that there are streaming of thoughts. My memory keeps on sending me thoughts which are not required by me in the moment. So I get unnecessary thoughts which burdens me, and I want to get rid of them, because I want to think only what I want to think in the moment. So I want to remain free from that. But this normally doesn't happen. I keep on getting thoughts from my past because of my past, whatever memory content is. So, and there are some thoughts which are having different kinds of feelings, like hurt and anger and all that. And that in the moment, those thoughts troubles me. So I want to be free from that. And I think the person who came to Krishnamurti was also having the similar problem. Now Krishnamurti has suggested him that see yourself, and then see your motive and all that, and what is behind it. And then he was also relating with the dreams. So I just want to know what he was trying to indicate. How just observation of thoughts. My question is, how just simply self-knowledge. Okay, I'm having self-knowledge about myself, that I think in this way, or these are my motives. Just by observation or by awareness, how I can be free of these problems. And how my dream. Yeah, please, sir.
I'll make my comments after Harshji, because you have raised certain fundamental things, so it has to be tackled from the beginning. So I'll let Harshji say something, and then I'll come back.
Let us start afresh, sir.
Yeah, let Harshji say something first.
Okay, let me start from a different point, because still with, see, one of the questions and that Krishnaji asks, which is not here in this section, is, does meditation cover the whole of our existence? Does it cover our daily? What is the relationship of meditation to our daily existence? And he suggests that it does, that everything that our whole existence is in meditation. It's not when we are in meditation or something, it's not separate from our daily life. It is about our daily life, and it's not separate from it. So it's not an escape from it. It's not trying to be something else or something different. It actually is embracing all of that. That an awareness of every element of our consciousness. And why is that important? It should be self-evident that if we understand our existence, then we are really in a position to then right action flows from us without us having to do anything about it. And there is we observe misery, we observe the greed, we observe all the conflict and the violence, but we see it in relation to everything else. So it's not an answer, it's just that we see what it is. We see through it. We are not consumed by it. So I think that is why people through centuries have felt that meditation was so important, because it is the question of embracing all of life. I think that is what meditation is about. And just to say a little bit, actually, even in this extract, I think Krishnaji gives us a clue. And I'm not speaking because I'm not interpreting what Krishna says. I'm relating what happens if one does this. If one actually doesn't have to be sitting, it doesn't have to be anything. It's not your physical situation. Though, of course, when you're sitting or not doing anything is when it's the easiest to do this. If you observe your thought, if you observe every bit of thought with great attention, then you see the thoughts that come up. Yesterday I was in court, well, after the court's over, I'm still thinking about what happened. So I see those thoughts, but if you don't fight the thoughts, if you let the thoughts occur, then you think them through. They reach a point when there's no more to think about that. Or you see that there's no point, this is not a fruitful way of thinking about something. There's no point thinking about this. Or there's no point thinking about what might happen in the future. So slowly your thoughts reach a natural end. So when that stops, maybe some other thought comes in. What's happening with my son? But as you observe those thoughts too, not only that, you begin to see that quite a lot of your thinking is fruitless. And you see it. You see that you're thinking about something, but there's nothing for you to do. So there is something in which each train of thought comes to an end. And if you continue with this, then you may see that violence is no answer to anything. So then later on, you don't think too much about violence. And so the thinking kind of fades out. And some of trains of thought fade out forever. I think this is what Krishnaji is saying. When he says that if each day we complete our thoughts and feelings, you complete them, you finish with a thought because you've seen it to its end. And towards the end of this thing, I think that's what he says. If each day we complete our thoughts and feelings and not carry them over to the next. So there is a way in which by just observation, your thoughts naturally complete themselves. And I think earlier in this, he talks about it as being, I don't think he calls it preparation now. I'm looking at it just now to see what he says. But in some ways, this is going to allow you to come upon meditation. So this act of observing your thoughts and not feeding them, but just letting them reach their end, each thought, each train of thought seems to be what he's getting at. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you. Uh, I would like to say something about what Dinesh ji raised because uh, if I understand correctly, Dinesh ji raises similar fundamental questions in all our meetings. As Harsh ji has mentioned, uh, meditation is all our life. It is not different from life. But if we sit down and say that I'm going to meditate and I must get rid of my hurt and my misery and all that, then of course it will not take us anywhere. So what I suggest is, uh, let me make it very clear that uh, I also have the same feeling, a same problem with thoughts as you have. So I'm not taking myself to be different than you. But can we just sit quietly and watch what is happening? Be aware of my thoughts. That would be the beginning. See what happens. Rather than I want result right away that I thought I know all the thought comes from memory and there are good thoughts, bad thoughts, some create hurt, some happiness and all that. All that is true. But can I be aware of my thoughts? Let it come like Harshji mentioned, let it come and let it reach a logical end without saying that this is a good thought or bad thought, this has given me pleasure, this has given me pain. Let it come and go. Uh, I think that would be a beginning to start with that without expect. Why should you be free of misery or I should be free of misery? Why it should be? Let's face life as it comes and watch where it takes us. I would like to narrate a story because I'd like to tell stories. Shakti ji has published a small story in Parisamvad where a gentleman tells Krishna ji that I'm so busy right from the morning till evening, so I have no time to meditate. So how do I meditate? Then Krishna ji said, sir, what do you do? He said, I work in an office and I leave home at 8 o'clock and come back by 8 o'clock in the night. And there is hardly any time. I am so tired and I don't feel like meditating. Then he said, how do you go to your office? He says, I take a bus. It takes about 45 minutes. He says, sir, you have so much time. You have 45 minutes. So it's a question, do I really seriously want to observe my thoughts? Do I have the passion to do it? Do I want a quiet time where I'm all the time busy with thoughts, doing this, I have to do that, reach there, complete this job and come back? This is our life. We want to reach somewhere all the time. Can I take a pause and just watch without any result? I'm not saying, Dinesh ji, that you will reach somewhere. Please don't misunderstand me. But just watch, see what happens. Nobody can provide answer to these things. We have to find our own answers. This is what I can suggest. Of course, this is an intellectual answer, but this is all I can tell you. Yes, Anand ji something and then Sushil Kumar Jain. Anand ji.
So yes, sir. So again, sir, when we talk about meditation, do understand the root meaning of the word meditation means means measure. It is a measure. The mind is measuring all the time. Can I see that it keeps on, it's become mechanical, it is repetitive, it has fallen into pattern, and that has become habitual. So that is what it is. Ending of that is meditation. Meditation, again, meditation means to, it also means to move in time and out of time. Can I observe that is the question? So now if I'm asking a question to someone or say over here, I mean, it is not going to solve. Can I look at that? Can I inquire? Can I mean, am I interested in, I won't say interest is the wrong thing, sir. I mean, it is for me to find out, sir. I need to inquire. I need to go into it. The moment I'm asking someone again, it becomes, I mean, I make the other person an authority. I need to question it. I have to question myself. That is what I would say, sir. Oh, sir.
Okay, thank you, Anand. I would like to read something from what I have just read before I ask Sushil you to say something. If you see the third paragraph, there he says, the right kind of meditation, right meditation is for thought to free itself from all compulsions, from coercion, from wrong effort. We must understand the motive, the compulsion that lies behind the becoming. the desire to reach out, to attain, without fundamentally understanding this urge, right meditation is not possible. So this is something which I'm not saying that you take it to your heart, remember it and do. Can we try it out in our life and see what happens? This is something for all of us to find it out. Yes, Sushilji, and then Dinesh
One-
Lagmar.
Yeah. One has to confess first of all, that you are made up of leftovers. You are made up of residue. If you just understand this, that you are made up of a residue. You just don't finish neither a thought nor a feeling. You just leave it with you. Though you are made up of those residues, those leftovers. That's why you repeat it. Number of times you say that you start afresh, you start afresh. Nobody starts afresh, except time comes afresh. The moment comes fresh. If you responded with residue, with leftover in your uh, own heart, then you are not meeting it fresh, because nobody can meet moment with a fresh, with leftovers, residue. So one thing one has to understand, that I am made up of residue. If residue and leftover is not there, you are fresh. Definitely, you are like you are something different. You don't find in any discussion or any dialogue, because we are made up of leftovers. That's why we repeat it. That's why we are. Please start with the fresh. Please start with fresh. There is no freshness until and unless the leftover is finished. The finishing of leftover is self-knowledge. If you have got you ponder it rightly, then you can finish it. If you don't, you have to keep your mind aside, or you have to work with no mind. Mind cannot meet with mind. If we understand this much, then we won't be crying this. Let us start fresh. Freshness is nothing but emptying of yourself. That is the freshness.
Thank you,
That's-
Sushilji. Thank you. Thank you. Yes,
Like
Dineshji, please go
fresh.
ahead.
Sir, whatever you said at the last, that was actually my question. Just by simply observing, I'm able to free myself from the impressions which are not deep rooted, or which are not where my attachments are not that serious. But wherever the impressions are deep rooted, wherever the problems are very what we can say very serious, some old serious matters, simple observation, how it will make me free from that? That was my question.
You will have to see it
Krishnamurti,
yourself.
and how
sir.
what dream has to got related with it in this particular
Who else can
whatever.
reply? Who else can reply it to you, sir? Who
Sir,
else
my
can
question,
reply it to you? Other
sir,
than you? Yes.
sir,
Your question, by observation, you will be free or not. You yourself can judge it. Nobody else. If everybody says that this is, then it is not going to solve your problem, sir. As far as me is concerned, I am sure nobody can solve your problem. Then you yourself. And if you don't amplify yourself, if you don't leave residue behind or keep aside your mind, observe it, and then see it. That's all what is needed. If anything more is needed, I don't think that anybody can tell it to you. If somebody
is it in
tells
our control, sir?
then I will also listen.
Jain Sahab, is it in our control to leave aside the residue?
Definitely, yeah, that's the. If you don't using controller, if you are not using your mind and observing it, there is an observation without minding. There is a observation without mind. If you जैसे मन में भरकर तुम कुछ देख रहे हो तो कभी नहीं देख पाओगे तुम, मन भरकर देखोगे तो देख पाओगे तुम. इतना सरल है. मन में तो भर रखा है अपने, कभी ये कभी वो, कभी वो रेसिड्यू आ जाता है, कभी वो लेफ्ट ओवर आ जाता है, फिर अपन कोई क्वेश्चन रिपीट कर लेते हैं और फिर वो का वही अपने को लगता है कि फ्रेश है, फिर अपन कहते हैं नो लेट अस स्टार्ट फ्रेश, ऐसा मेरे को लगता है. मे बी आई मे बी रॉन्ग. Senior person, they will be deciding what I am saying and what you are saying. Let us see. Let us observe it. What others say on this.
What
I am
Shakti ji has to
quite
say?
sure.
Okay, Sushil ji, thank you. I think we'll go to Shakti ji, and quite a few people want to make some comments. So Shakti ji first, then Mr. Ramarao, then Clemis. Yes, Shakti ji, please. Unmute.
Yeah, this I just wish to say something about this question of dreams, because one thing is that I don't see much difference in dreams and thoughts. They are sort of sister mechanisms. And another thing which I feel to share, because you have raised this question and I'm not answering it, I'm just looking at one aspect of this question. You see, when I was reading this chapter, and I saw one thing very clearly, because Krishnamurti here, he says that the greater the intensity of awareness, the less the dreamer dreams. So it seems that the greater the intensity of awareness.
Not clear, sir.
Okay, it's not clear. My voice is not reaching.
No, I can hear you.
Yeah. It also means for me that the greater the intensity of awareness, the less the thinker thinks. That is one part of it. And I have seen in my life that most of the time I am escaping from my inner states, and then the dreams are really bad dreams. When I sleep, there are bad dreams. Whenever I am escaping a lot during the daytime. But sometimes it happens that I am not escaping. It happens sometimes. And then I have never seen the absence of dreams, but the dreams are of a different quality. Their quality changes. They are no more horrible dreams. Just this I wanted to share. Is true about thoughts also. Thanks.
Thank you, Shakti ji. Thank you. Before Mr. Ramarao takes up, Dinesh, I think it's very important for us to answer our questions ourselves, because what happens when we observe our thoughts, or when they come from our memory or experiences, it's very difficult for anybody to say that just be aware. But can you just quietly watch them and you will find the answer, not necessarily an answer that, okay, this is what happens, but just keep watching them, see what happens. There are no solutions, there are no answers. I think we can only bring in questions, and those questions can be best answered by ourselves, because it concerns our life. One has to just observe them to the best of our capacity. Can we have that energy to observe? Because even when we start observing, something else comes. There is so much of distraction. And observation means to stay with what is. Can we do that? That is the beginning of.
Can I say something in response?
Yes, sir.
I think, Dinesh, you've asked a very good question, one that has concerned me greatly, because, of course, we've tried to observe our thoughts as much as we can. But what about the ones that are not on the surface, that are hidden, that are so I thought people might be interested if I read you a quotation from Krishnamurti, which really addresses this question completely. This is what he says: those of us who have listened somewhat earnestly must have made the experiment of following thoughts and feelings consciously. That is, by becoming aware of conscious thoughts and feelings and ideas, we clear the mind of all conflict and all tribulations and confusions. And this is where he comes. You begin to receive the unconscious thoughts and intimations. When you clear your mind, he's saying, of conscious thoughts, you begin to receive the unconscious thoughts. So in order to begin following the stream of self-knowledge, there must be a clarification of the conscious. That is, one must be aware what is consciously taking place. And that is by becoming aware of the conscious activities, which I assure you is quite difficult. The unconscious thoughts and hidden intentions and motives can be understood. So that's what he's saying. You have to focus on the conscious, and then the others will also begin to reveal themselves. So I can go on. So as the conscious is the present, the now, through the present, the unconscious and hidden thoughts can be understood. Through any other means, except by becoming intensely aware of the present. So he's saying you just have to be intensely aware of the present. And so on. So I think this is what Dineshji was asking.
Yes, sir. This is really very interesting. And every time when we hear Krishnamurti, we listen a new word. Today, Shakti ji said intensity of awareness should be more. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we go to Mr. Ramarao, then Clemis, and then Kamlesh ji?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Ramarao.
Sir, you have clarified my doubt without asking the question.
Okay. Okay, Clemis, your turn.
Yeah, okay. So my question is, there are two things that I want to say. First of all, about this self-knowledge question. I have a question. See, self-knowledge, is it the knowledge of self or is it the knowledge of myself? And then, is there such thing as myself? That is one thing. And the next thing is, where does this thought come from? We think they come from me. Do they come from me? Are they not? Where do they come from? Do we know that? We think, oh, because our thoughts, we don't even understand, because we think something happens to us. Let's say I want to cross the road and there is a lot of traffic. I'm unable to cross the road. So I have this, then thoughts start to come. But the thing is, there is a pattern that follow always the same, my thoughts, the thoughts that come follow always the same pattern. So, and this pattern is there because of conditioning. So where do these thoughts come from, really? And is there such thing as myself to understand and to know? Or is there only self to understand? And about dreams, there is a very nice talk. I don't remember now which one, but I just saw it last week, where Krishnamurti is talking with Dr. Anderson. And he is saying about dreams. He says that we dream because we don't have order in ourselves. During the day, we don't have order. Everything is very chaotic in our mind. So the mind needs order. So when we go to sleep and the mind works with symbols, when we go to sleep, the mind puts order gets its own order through dreams. So, but when you have an orderly life during the day, then that is not needed. And then he says the mind goes beyond where we cannot even imagine. So that is what he's talking about dreams with Dr. Anderson. I don't remember which talk it was. I think I cannot say because I watched many of them lately. So the whole thing boils down to the same thing, that we don't have order. We don't understand what we are doing. We do things randomly during the day, and then to understand what is going on, to understand how our mind works is of importance. And not all these things like, I want to reach this, I want to reach that. Can we really reach somewhere? Is there somewhere to reach? Or is there only understanding? We need to understand certain things, and then different things may happen. But we always have this idea of reaching somewhere. So that was I wanted to say.
Thank you, Klemesh. Yes, Kamlesh ji and then Anand ji. We can't hear you.
Are you able to hear
Yes, we are now.
to me, sir?
Yeah.
I want to say only one thing.
Your voice is breaking,
Only in
Kamlesh ji. Your
self-knowing
voice,
can one know that
your voice is breaking.
in only self-knowing, one can know the meditation is right. Are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yes.
In
Yes, we
only
can.
self-knowing and observing the thoughts and all the sensations and all those things, one can then see the meditation is right or not. Are you able to listen to
Yes.
my basic question, sir?
We heard you. Yes.
Because before doing anything, one cannot know it is right or wrong. One has to see for himself the truth of that. And my next question was, as to Harsh Tanka sir, if he can explain something about that. What is the quality of awareness that will lead to clarity of perceiving the thoughts itself? Is my question clear, sir?
Not what is the quality of awareness?
What is the
that
quality
can-
of awareness that can have a clarity of perception about thoughts?
Clarity of
I can't speak as an expert. I can only speak
Okay.
as somebody who, like you, is trying to discover what all these things mean, and not to discover by in one's own mind, in one's own consciousness, in one's own self, to try and see what all this is. So I think I think one begins with, we're all aware of our thoughts to some extent. We can, know what we are thinking. In fact, some people call it the sixth sense, the sense by which we know what we are thinking. It's quite interesting. So we have a sense of thought, and we have now, I think the interesting question is that if we just start observing our thought, even as we are talking, even as we are acting, we can be aware of our thought. I don't know whether it's quality of awareness or quality of attention. It's just awareness, and we're aware of our thoughts. And then we can be aware of our reactions to other people, and we can, to things that happen, and see how our thinking relates to our actions. So all this, I think we can easily do. Now, Krishnamurti says that we may not, our perception of our own thinking and our own actions may be distorted. And I think we observe ourselves, we begin to see certainly that our perception can be incomplete. We don't know everything that we are thinking. We are not fully aware of our actions. We are not fully aware of what it means. So there is limitation even in our normal awareness. I think this is something that you are saying. And then he makes the challenging statement, which is that in order to observe yourself, you already have to be looking at it with a quality of mind, which he calls intelligence. So intelligence has to be in operation, even in observing oneself fully. So this brings to the question of, and this is a question one has to ask oneself, by observation, not by intellectualizing or reading or even asking what Krishnamurti says about it. Is there some other quality? Is there some other, not thought? I'm observing my thought. I'm seeing my thinking going. And when I'm observing my thought, as I'm doing now, observing my thought, and this is not something I will do in the future or something, this is something to do now in the present. I'm observing my thought. Is there something else? Something that is not, that can see the whole of this, can see the whole of my action, can see not just that I'm talking to you and talking about thought, but is also aware of this connection at the same time of the whole world, of everything that is around. Is there a level of attention that is capable of not only seeing the thought that is occurring now, but also be aware of, everything else, of my connection to the rest of the world, of what's going on, how people are fighting everywhere, how, to be aware in the present moment. So there is, I think, we begin to discover the possibility of a quality of awareness which is not focused or concentrated. But at the same time, right now, we are focused on talking to each other, and I'm looking at you on my screen. You're looking at me on your screen. So that is what's happening in the present. But my awareness is not restricted to just that. That is, if I am looking beyond the immediate consciousness and seeing what it is that is capable of have that enormous quality of awareness and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harshi. Dinesh,
Thank you,
please go ahead. Unmute, yeah.
I also think in the same way, sir, what Clevis was trying to point out, myself. Content of thought is one thing and emergence of thought is another thing. What is the platform by which the thought is emerging? What is the phenomena of emergence of thought? That also one has to be aware of. Not only the content. That's what I feel. Yes, sir.
Anandji wants to say something.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, whether we talk about dreams or thoughts, I mean, dreams actually are the continuation of what happens during the day, sir. Can I understand that is the question? And during the day, what happens? I'm thinking all the time. 24 hours, my mind is not quiet, it's thinking. And thinking is happening because I have not really solved my problems. The problems continues to be there. I may think I've solved the problem, but it is not. It is solved. It isn't solved. That keeps coming in. That is the reason why it keeps coming in my dreams. Now, in fact, I mean, if I had really a serious problem and I really solved that, it never again comes in my dreams. That is what I have observed. Also, that's what happened in my life. And Kay also has said about it. I mean, the problems. What happens during the day, they continue in the night. Can I observe that is a question, sir? That's all I have to say, sir.
I think that's a fairly accepted psychological fact, even in the scientific community, that dreams are a continuation of what we have taken in and observed, and that what is happening is that the brain, which thinks in symbols, not just in words, and is connecting what has come in, what is new, and it's almost like it's filing it away and putting it and connecting it with different things in memory, and bringing, as has been said, order to the brain. My understanding of what Krishnamurti is saying is that if you're very alert, that process of connection of what is happening right now and what you're thinking right now with the whole of your consciousness and with everything, which is, as I was saying earlier, the function of intelligence, that happens at the moment of whatever thought happens to be there. So there is no need then, because it has been connected. It is, you've seen it in its connection with everything. So there is no necessity for dreaming. Krishnaji famously said that he doesn't dream because all that happens with that intensity, release of that process gets completed straight away without having to be carried on into the night. And that's why he says that the more, even if you're not managing to finish all your thoughts in the moment, the more the intensity, the less you dream.
Thank you, Harji. I think we have run out of comments now.
Sir, I also feel in the same way. In my dreams, whatever feelings I have not completed or I have not experienced fully, or I have not completed my thought in the day, that occurs, and so my subconscious mind tries to just make some sort of order in it. So basically, wherever I have not experienced the feelings fully, I have not remained with it and it is not completed, that gets repeated. That's what I think.
I think Shakti ji has a question to be answered by Harsh ji. Shakti ji, please go ahead.
Yes, sir.
We can't hear you, Shakti ji.
Sorry.
Some problem.
Yeah, now. This being aware all the day or of thoughts and feelings, that I could have never, I did that. It couldn't happen, or I didn't want to do that. But one thing from Krishnamurti helped me a lot. When he says that when you are going to sleep, before that, take a stock of your day, whatever has happened during the day. So it's like a mental diary, something like that. It's not discussed much in K circles, but that was a great help to me. Thank you very much.
It is. I mean, I certainly have heard him say that too. And certainly it is part of what I try and do to, at the end of the day, give some time to just go over the day and observe, because there are many things in one's day one doesn't complete, and then see. It also helps you to sleep to do that. But I think people who have known Krishnamurti certainly do that. He definitely recommends it.
So, I mean, the last 4 or 5 lines, actually, this is very clear, sir. It says, you know, but thoughts and feelings are not carried over.
Yes.
I mean, unburdening the mind and heart every minute of the day and not allowing any residue or scars to form, then there will be deathless ecstasy.
Yes.
So I'm trying to interpret so that I sleep without any dreams. There's a peace. I have no
Yes.
problems. Yeah.
Yes.
I think there is a very good chapter in this book which we'll take up on 17th. This will be about taking stock of what is happening in the day. So we'll take it up maybe on 17th. Not 17th, maybe 21st. And 10th, this coming Sunday at 11 o'clock, we have Harshji talking about love and death. So you're all welcome to join us at 11 o'clock, 11 in the morning. And I think we have no more questions, so we can as well close. Kya Sushil ji? We can close now?
Bilkul. Yeah, you can close it. But the moment Harshji declared that he is not a specialist, all questions are for him only. The moment you say that you are an expert, all of us try to question him. And he has to say
I will
again
say
and
something
again the
about
same
it.
thing.
I will say
I'm not
something about
expert.
this on Sunday. I will say something.
Okay.
At least he will be saying it with love. At least he will be saying on Sunday with love,
I hope so. I hope so.
without using mind. Without mind,
When I was thinking about it, I thought every time we talk about things, we end up talking about thought. So I made a resolution.
Yeah.
On Sunday, I will not
Yeah.
talk about thought.
Okay. Thank you everybody. Thanks a
you
lot.
very much,
sir.
Harshji.
Thank you.
Good
And
night.
you are welcome. You are welcome
Good
on
night.
Sunday.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all.
Thank you, everybody.
Kamlesh, please close, Kamlesh.
I say